1.2 1.
These 4 children would never grow old. The photo, taken around 1906, shows the 4 daughters of Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. After the Russian Revolution in 1917, they and their parents and brother were arrested and imprisoned in a house in Yekaterinburg. There, on the 17th of July 1918, they were executed on the orders of Lenin. For many years after their assassination, there were rumors that the youngest daughter, Anastasia, on the right of the photo, had managed to escape. Several women claimed to have been Anastasia. The best-known impostor was Anna Anderson, a woman living in Germany whose claims, though rejected by most surviving members of the Tsar's family, were widely believed. In 1979, the bodies of the Tsar and his wife and 3 of their daughters were discovered near Yekaterinburg, which fueled the myth that Anastasia had escaped. However, in July 2007, an amateur historian discovered bones near Yekaterinburg belonging to a boy and a young woman. And in April 2008, DNA tests proved that they belonged to 2 children of Nicholas II, a son and a daughter, Anastasia. As a result, the story of her survival was conclusively disproved.
Two.
In this rather touching photo, showing his softer family side, US President John F. Kennedy is greeted by his children John Jr. and Caroline on his arrival to spend the weekend with them at their summer home in Massachusetts on the 23rd of August 1963. His natural joy at seeing them may well have been intensified on this occasion by the fact that a few weeks previously his 3rd child, a son named Patrick, had died at just a few days old. Almost exactly 3 months later, on the 22nd of November, Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. His son, John Jr., as so many of this ill-fated family, also died young in a plane crash in 1999, and Caroline is the only surviving member of the family.
Three.
Spanish artist Pablo Picasso is seen here with Françoise Gillot and their son Claude in around 1952. Françoise met Picasso in 1943 when she was 21, and he was over 40 years older. Although they never married, they spent nearly 10 years together and had 2 children, Claude and Paloma. However, Françoise and Picasso's relationship was not a happy one, and in 1964, 11 years after their separation, she wrote a damning description of him in her book called Life with Picasso. Picasso tried to stop its publication, but he failed, and it went on to sell over 1 million copies in dozens of languages. From then on, Picasso refused to see Claude or Paloma ever again.
Four.
In May 1883, the 13-year-old Mohandas Gandhi was married to 14-year-old Kasturba, following the arranged marriage custom of their region at the time. This photo was taken in 1915, when Gandhi was beginning his 32-year struggle for Indian independence, and it is the earliest known photo of Gandhi and his wife. In the first years of their marriage, Gandhi is said to have been a very controlling husband, but writing many years later, he described the feelings he felt for Kasturba at the time. "Even at school I used to think of her, and the thought of nightfall and our subsequent meeting was ever haunting me." Despite frequently being apart, their shared beliefs in national independence and education, not to mention a deep emotional attachment, held them together, and their marriage lasted for over 60 years.
Five.
The importance of family to the great Russian writer Leo Tolstoy apparently influenced his work, especially his two most famous novels, War and Peace and Anna Karenina. This photo, taken in 1909, shows him telling a story to two of his grandchildren, Ilya and Sonia. Although his relationship with his children and grandchildren was very close, for most of his marriage he and his wife Sophia did not get on. She was strongly opposed to many of his views, especially the idea of giving away his private property, and was also jealous of the attention he gave to his many followers. Shortly after this photo was taken, at the age of 82, and after nearly 50 years of marriage, Tolstoy finally made up his mind to separate from her. He left home in the middle of winter, in the dead of night. He took a train south, but when he arrived at Astapovo station a day later, he became ill and died of pneumonia. According to some sources, he had spent the last hours of his life preaching love and non-violence to his fellow passengers on the train.
Six.
This photo, taken around 1886, is of scientist Albert Einstein with his sister Maya, as small children. They resembled each other physically and were extremely close. According to Albert, she was his only friend. After Maya's marriage, she and her husband Paul bought a villa in Italy near Florence, and Albert frequently visited her. In 1939, at the outbreak of World War II, she was forced to leave Italy because she was Jewish. She sought refuge with her beloved brother in the USA, but she had to leave behind her husband, who could not get a visa. Tragically, in 1946, just after the war had ended, she had a stroke and was unable to travel. She never saw her husband again, and Albert cared for her until her death in 1951.
One 1.3. 1.
I absolutely don't think that parents should try to be their children's friends. Friends and parents are completely different things.
I see what you mean, but I think children should have a more friendly relationship with their parents than my generation did.
2.
I think people who are very dedicated to their work rarely manage to have a happy family life. I think they can sometimes be quite selfish and they don't have enough time for their family.
I agree up to a point, but I do think there are exceptions. For example, those that work...
3.
I think it's true that young children should be looked after by one or other of their parents.
I agree in theory, but what happens if they can't afford to live on one salary?
4.
I think it's true that marrying very young almost inevitably ends badly. I think marrying in your 30s is probably the best age.
I'm not sure I agree with you. My parents got married when my dad was 20 and my mum was 18, and they're still happily married.
5.
I think you have to love your family, but you don't have to like them. I love my sister, but she drives me mad most of the time.
I don't really think that's right. It's impossible to love somebody that you don't like.
1.4. 1.
I see what you mean, but
2.
I agree up to a point, but
3.
I agree in theory, but
4.
I'm not sure I agree with you.
5.
I don't really think that's right.
1.5. Personality. 1. Adjectives. 1.
resourceful.
2.
Thorough.
3.
Bright.
4.
Straightforward.
5.
Determined.
6.
Self-sufficient.
7.
Sympathetic.
8.
Conscientious.
9.
Gentle.
10.
Steady.
11.
Spontaneous.
12.
Sarcastic.
1.6. 2. Useful phrases when describing personality. 1.
My father tends to avoid conflict. He never argues with my mother. He just leaves the room.
2.
On the surface, he seems self-confident, but deep down he's quite insecure.
3.
I worry about my grandmother. She's a bit too trusting, so it's easy for people to take advantage of her.
4.
On the whole, he's pretty laid back, though he can sometimes get very stressed about work.
5.
She's a bit of a control freak. She always needs to organise everything and everybody.
6.
He comes across as quite sarcastic, but in fact he's really friendly.
1.7. 3. Idioms. 1. B.
My dad's got a heart of gold. He's incredibly kind to everyone he meets.
2. I.
My brother-in-law is very down-to-earth. He's very sensible and practical.
3. A.
My boss is a bit of a cold fish. She's unfriendly and she never shows her emotions.
4. C.
My brother's a real pain in the neck. He's so annoying. He's always taking my things.
5. E.
My mum's a soft touch. I can always persuade her to give me extra pocket money.
6. H.
My uncle has a very quick temper. He gets angry very easily.
7. J.
I know I shouldn't criticise your family, but your sister is really full of herself. She thinks she's the most important member of the family.
8. G.
He comes across as aggressive, but in fact he wouldn't hurt a fly. He's the gentlest person I know.
9. F.
My brother never lifts a finger around the house. He expects the rest of us to do everything.
10. D.
My cousin's always the life and soul of the party. She's great at telling jokes and making people laugh.
1.8.
British English. Determined.
American English. Determined.
1.9. 1.
Conscientious. Egg.
2.
Resourceful. Horse.
3.
Sarcastic. Cat.
4.
Thorough. Up.
5.
Spontaneous. Train.
6.
Straightforward. Horse.
7.
Steady. Egg.
8.
Self-sufficient. Fish.
1.10. Work. 1. Adjectives. 1. C.
My job as a divorce lawyer is very challenging. It tests my abilities in a way that keeps me interested.
2. A.
Working as a checkout assistant can be a bit monotonous and repetitive. I have to do exactly the same thing every day.
3. F.
I'm a primary school teacher. I find working with children very rewarding. It makes me happy because it's useful and important.
4. B.
I work in a small design company and my job's really motivating. I never mind having to work overtime.
5. H.
Being a surgeon is very demanding. It's very high pressure and you have to work long hours.
6. E.
I always wanted an exciting job, but sadly mine is incredibly tedious. It's really boring and it makes me feel impatient all the time.
7. G.
He's in a dead-end job in the local factory. The wages are low and there's no hope of promotion.
8. D.
She's got a very high-powered job in finance. It's important and comes with a lot of responsibility.
1.11. 2. Collocations. 1.
I'm hoping it'll be a good career move to go from publishing to advertising.
2.
I've been unemployed for 6 months now, so I spend most of my time job hunting.
3.
My brother works as an events manager, organising conferences.
4.
I left school at 15, so I had to look for a job that didn't require any academic qualifications.
5.
My problem is that all the jobs I want to apply for ask for some work experience, and as I've just finished university, I don't have any.
6.
I'm a junior doctor, and if I want to move up the career ladder, I need to work in several different hospitals and departments.
7.
In Britain, people who work for government departments are called civil servants.
8.
In some careers, people with very good qualifications are put onto a fast track, so they get promoted more quickly.
1.12. 3. The same or different? 1.
Colleagues and co-workers mean the same thing.
2.
Quit and resign mean the same thing.
3.
Staff and workforce mean the same thing.
4.
Laid off and made redundant mean the same thing.
5.
Out of work and off work are different. Out of work means unemployed. Off work means away from work because of illness or another reason.
6.
Was sacked and was fired mean the same thing.
7.
Get promoted and get a pay rise are different. Get promoted means get a better job in the same company. Get a pay rise means get an increase in salary.
8.
Skills and qualifications are different. Skills are particular abilities, for example, IT skills. Qualifications are exams you have passed or studies you have completed.
9.
Hire and employ mean the same thing.
10.
Perks and benefits mean the same thing.
1.13. Part 1.
So, first of all, Emma, how did you actually manage to get the jobs?
Well, I got the jobs through a mixture of networking and cold calling. So applying to different organisations, finding email addresses online, writing cover letters, explaining my project and attaching my CV. Networking was a big part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking to someone aware that they themselves might not work in that area, but they might know someone who does.
Was 2 weeks long enough to get a feel for what doing the jobs more long-term would be like?
For me, it was, yes, because it was just meant to be enough to get a sense of whether this is something I want to learn more about or whether it's something that's actually not for me. And I found I was very quickly able to decide whether I wanted to learn more or actually maybe not so much. It was just enough to get a flavour of it.
Mm-hmm. Was it an issue that you had none of the qualifications for some of the jobs?
Well, no, because I was doing work shadowing, which is more about following a professional around, shadowing their daily lives, rather than having my own set work and projects to do. I wasn't expected to have qualifications or to lead my own work.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the case quite often with young people who go in and just do some work shadowing and they just don't have the degree or several years' experience that you would need to do professional level work. It's just to find out if that's the sort of job they would like to do before they then go and do the qualifications and get the experience.
Which job did you enjoy most?
One thing that I enjoyed most was alpaca farming in Cornwall, which is in southern England. And I enjoyed it most because it was one of the jobs that challenged all of my assumptions about what being a farmer in the 21st century and earning a sustainable living was like. The first half of each day was traditional farming jobs, so feeding, looking after the animals.
Mm-hmm.
But the second half of the day, the farmer was an entrepreneur. She would take her alpacas, shear them, make the wool into high-end luxury children's clothes that she then sold to department stores across the country. And this was a placement that broke down all of my presumptions and preconceptions about what a job was like.
Wow. Were there any jobs that you completely ruled out?
So one that I didn't get on quite so well with was publishing, because I'm very dyslexic. And so for me, copy editing, so spotting typos and grammar mistakes in long pieces of texts, I find very challenging. It's not one of my strengths, which in publishing, as an editor, is one of the big things that you have to do.
1.14. Part 2.
What did you learn about yourself during this process?
I learned that there's not just one job that is right for me. I went into the experience thinking I will do 25 and I will figure out which is my dream job and that's what I'll go away and do. But what I found out was that that's not necessarily true at all. I discovered the concept of portfolio careers, which is the idea of having multiple part-time, short-term, freelance contract jobs that make up the equivalent of one permanent role.
Ah. Do you think young people nowadays have to be prepared to do many different jobs, that the whole idea of going into one career for life doesn't exist anymore?
Absolutely. I would completely agree with that. I think the idea of one permanent 9-to-5 job is, if not dead yet, it will be in the next 20 years. Young people today will have on average 5 different career changes, not job changes, career changes over the course of their lives. And to do that, they need to be able to continuously upskill and be able to get on with different people. So I think it's people skills, almost more so than technical skills, that will get us through the longevity of our careers. And bear in mind that people of our age are going to be working well into their 70s. Our careers are likely to be ultra marathons, so we have to like what it is that we're doing.
And how do you think we can teach people skills?
So personally, I think our education system, both in terms of secondary school, college and university, needs to be much more focused on skills rather than technical subject-based learning. We need to be teaching young people how to network, for example, which is one of the absolute core skills to progress yourself in your career, is learning how to walk into a room of people you don't know and to find people that are mutually beneficial that you can develop relationships with.
So what are you doing now?
So what I came away with was several different jobs that I ended up doing. So I now work as a public speaker, as a writer, doing bits of journalism and as a speechwriter as well. So altogether they make up the equivalent of one full-time job.
Do you think your future career might take off in a completely different direction?
I very much expect it to. So one of the main things that I also learnt from doing the project was that there are different careers that are appropriate for different stages of your life. As you get older, you have different priorities, different financial commitments, different stages of your personal life. And that means that you have different jobs that are relevant at different stages of life. So whilst I adored farming and it was one of my favourite placements, I don't think it is right for me in my 20s living in a very urban city like London. But me in my 40s, perhaps with a family, I might love to move out to the countryside and start a small holding farm as part of several other different elements of a career.
Well, thank you, Emma, so much for talking to us today.
1.15 1.
It was just enough to get a flavour of it.
2.
I wasn't expected to have qualifications or to lead my own work.
3.
The first half of each day was traditional farming jobs.
4.
Networking was a big part of it too.
5.
But what I found out was that that's not necessarily true at all.
1.16 1.
I want to find a job nearer home so that I don't...
2.
I didn't tell my boss how bad I thought his idea was, so as not to...
3.
Being a junior doctor is very demanding, partly because of...
4.
Even though I was offered a good salary,
5.
Our sales have gone up dramatically and as a result
6.
Staff will be given a bonus payment in December due to the...
7.
I wasn't offered the job in spite of having...
8.
the company has not been able to find a buyer, therefore it will...
1.17 1.
I want to find a job nearer home so that I don't have to spend so much time commuting.
2.
I didn't tell my boss how bad I thought his idea was, so as not to lose my job.
3.
Being a junior doctor is very demanding, partly because of the long hours.
4.
Even though I was offered a good salary, I decided not to accept the job.
5.
Our sales have gone up dramatically, and as a result, we need to hire more staff.
6.
Staff will be given a bonus payment in December due to the rise in annual profits.
7.
I wasn't offered the job in spite of having all the necessary qualifications.
8.
The company has not been able to find a buyer, therefore it will be closing down in 2 months' time.